Let's talk about organization design. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Org charts, moving boxes around, but I want you to stop and think about that for a second, because this is one of the single most powerful tools a leader has to actually hit their strategic goals and win. For real. Does this sound at all familiar? That feeling of friction. It's this nagging sense that, you've got a great team, everyone is working hard, but you're just not getting the traction you should. This is almost always the first sign that your company's structure and its strategy are completely out of sync. And look, if you're feeling that frustration, you are definitely not alone. So what we're going to do here is walk through a real, principle-driven process to move past that feeling and start making smarter decisions about the future of your company. But here's what's really interesting. Getting this right isn't just about what you do. It's just as much about what you don't do. So before we jump into the solution, we have got to talk about the common mistakes that trip up even the smartest leaders out there. Okay, here are the two big ones. First, what we call going from the hip, just relying on what you've always done. But hey, what worked 5 years ago is probably not going to work for what's coming next. The second one, and this is huge, is designing for a person. The whole conversation starts with, well, what are we going to do with Susan? And suddenly you've built an entire department around one person's strengths and weaknesses. So here's the key. You have to, absolutely have to separate the people from the design of the work itself. First the structure, then the people. So, how in the world do we avoid those traps? Well, the path to clarity doesn't start with having all the answers. It actually starts with asking the right questions. It all begins with a structured diagnostic, so we can get to the real root cause of that friction you're feeling. A great tool for this is what we call the structured self-check. Now, this is not a test. You're not trying to get a good score here. Its real job is to be a conversation spark. It's a framework to get your leadership team having a much deeper, more honest dialogue about what's really going on. So let's try one out. Ask your team this. Is it just getting harder and slower to make decisions? Are things getting bogged down in meetings? If the answer is yes, that's a massive red flag that your structure itself might be the bottleneck. Or how about this one? Do you see your managers constantly diving in and doing the work that their direct reports should be doing? That's not just a bad management habit. It's usually a giant symptom of a structural problem where roles are overlapping and nobody's really clear on who owns what. Okay, so once you've diagnosed the real problem, you need a clear path forward. This is where a structured 4-phase process is your best friend. It takes you methodically from that chaos and friction to the kind of clarity that a high-performing design brings. Let's just walk through it real quick. It starts with that diagnostic we just talked about. Then you lay the foundation, getting absolutely crystal clear on your strategy. Only then do you move to the fun part, the design phase, where you sketch out different options. And finally, and this is so critical, a dedicated phase just for implementation, to actually make it all happen. And during that design phase, it really helps to have this palette of options in your mind. Are you going to group people by similar work, like finance and HR, or by different business units, like products or regions? Understanding these basic models is what lets you start sketching out what the future of your company could actually look like. And hey, speaking of structures, here's a little insight from the trenches. The matrix is, without a doubt, the most misused model out there. That two bosses problem, it's very real. A matrix can only work if you have exceptional clarity on who has the final say. Without it, you're just creating chaos. All right, so we've talked about what not to do. We've talked about the process to follow, but now we get to the real secret sauce. This is the core principle that truly separates a good design from a great one. This is the secret to getting your management layers right. Okay, I really want you to lean in for this, because I genuinely believe this is the single most powerful concept in this entire field. This is the idea that can objectively, and I mean that, tell you if a management layer is even necessary. The concept is called complexity of work, and here's the magic. It lets you scientifically analyze if the work at one level is truly more complex than the work at the level below it. If it isn't, boom, you've got overlap and micromanagement. If the gap is too big, you've got a black hole where strategy goes to die. This gives you an objective, evidence-based way to design your hierarchy instead of just guessing. It is an absolute game changer. So, you've used this incredible principle, you've created a brilliant design on paper, fantastic, but that brilliant design is completely worthless if you can't bring it to life in the real world. This is where a rock-solid implementation plan becomes everything. A great implementation really has three distinct layers. First, there's the positional layer. That's all the technical stuff, like job descriptions and updating HR systems. Then comes the people layer, the careful, thoughtful process of matching the right talent to those new roles. And finally, the transition layer.
And this right here, this is the part that almost everyone overlooks, the transition layer. You can't just drop someone into a new role and cross your fingers. You have to actively enable them to succeed with things like first 90-day plans and the right support. This is what makes sure your brilliant design actually delivers real results.
So you see, when you follow a proven, principle-driven process, the transformation is incredible. You actually move from that constant grinding feeling of friction to a state of effortless, strategic flow. You replace that daily confusion with absolute clarity, and you turn all that frustration into a real, sustainable, strategic advantage. And that really brings us to the final and most critical question you should be asking your leadership team. Not just, is our organization working okay today, but is it truly honestly designed to win tomorrow and for all the tomorrows after that? If that question makes you pause, even for a second, then it's probably time to have a smarter, more structured conversation about your company's design. The path is here. And at Humanology, we're here to guide that journey with you.